Anime is a vast and varied medium, and if you're not already familiar, it can be daunting to find something you might be interested in watching. This is a podcast where three average anime enjoyers introduce their uninitiated co-host to their favorite anime touchstones, so he can join them deep in the Weebs. This week, we watched MD Geist. MD Geist, or Sokihei MD Geisto, Demon-Garbed Soldier MD Geist, is a 40-minute OVA that was released in Japan in 1986 and in North America in 1992. In 1996, the director's cut was released, featuring smoothed-out animation errors to fix numerous errors caused by the director's youth and inexperience leading an animation team, as well as 5 minutes of additional footage, including a new intro and epilogue, which set up the sequel. MD Geist 2: Death Force was released a few months later. To coincide with the release of the director's cut and Death Force, a comic book adaptation of both OVAs was released, as well as a prequel comic called Ground Zero, which filled in some details from the original. In the United States, the Sci-Fi Channel premiered MD Geist 1 and 2 during their Anim Monday block in 2008. The series is about a super soldier in a post-apocalyptic world. In the distant future, mankind has colonized other planets in the universe. While many planets lived in peace, the planet Jera has been ravaged by decades of war. Geist is MD-02, a most dangerous soldier, genetically engineered to function as a killing machine, giving him incredible combat capabilities, but an insatiable lust for battle. As a result, Geist was placed in suspended animation in a stasis pod orbiting the planet Jera, until it crashed several years later, awakening him and bringing him into another war on the now ruined planet. We watched both OVAs, specifically the director's cut version of the first.
Let me just say, after we had announced that we were doing this episode, and I got the OVAs, I was convinced this was going to be another show about doctors. It was not. In fact, the abbreviation is just as silly, though. Instead of medical doctor, most dangerous.
Most dangerous. Yeah, how many of you saw a explanation of the MD being a reveal in the show?
Made me wonder why they didn't just throw the S on at the end. Is there most dangerous dog walker?
Yeah, I've got complaints about that. It's like, it's MD, most dangerous. Okay, most dangerous.
He's the most dangerous Geist.
He's the most dangerous Geist.
Okay, so he's a ghost. Cool. Why can he touch things? Why can things touch him?
That's just his name. They all have German names.
And I get that. But they're the most dangerous soldier, but they only call him MD.
Well, they're part of the MDS project, so they are the most dangerous series.
And apparently no, that's kind of going into it. But let's just say we only see 1 and 2, and I can't tell if there's implication that they stopped there or not.
Yes, they stopped there. I know this because of outside information. Yeah, so okay, context for this show. This is one of the first shows when I was getting into the concept of enjoying old anime in a so bad it's good way. And this one in particular, for some reason, your favorite Mario Kart is your first Mario Kart, so my favorite so bad it's good anime is MD Geist. And so this is the one where I did go and get the Ground Zero prequel manga, and just I know some of the backstory, and I've watched this enough times that it's I had to do the rundown for Joe of who is the regular army and who is the Nextrum army and how do you tell them apart.
That's not fair. The actual material didn't include any of that.
I know.
Well, we will cover this in post after we do our conversations, because that's also something I want to bring up.
Yeah. So there's I do want to say, when we were talking about this a little bit last time, I did say that this show was a lot less rapey, which after watching it, I'm glad I was correct in that. I did forget how gory this show was. This is like thinking back to One Punch Man and how I did not think that show was that gory. I think that's because I had MD Geist as a very formative experience, and by comparison, this is way more people not deserving it have their faces popped in very bloody ways in this show. So I would like to apologize for not warning about that.
No. I think that's fair because that provides context for that whole conversation back then. So that makes sense now. It's one of those like, well, if you start with this extreme, then this other extreme doesn't seem so extreme. It's less extreme.
The one intending to be goofy.
Yeah.
As I was telling Chuck previously, pretty much just everyone in this show is made out of balloons filled with tomato soup.
They're just walking squibs. That's all of the non-named characters, and most of them named characters.
Listen, we're gonna. I guess I'm gonna cut ahead a little bit on the less rapey. A, first, yay. B, it bothers me that you were worried that you were wrong. And then 3, yes, I intentionally did that. It wasn't rapey, but man, she gotta learn when someone reads signals.
Yeah, I mean, like terrible female characters terribly written female characters is definitely a through line, especially in 80s anime.
Yeah.
But
and I get that. I am not surprised at all by that. It's one of those like the whole time. Spoiler for that section of when we get to the review. All my notes was like, just read the room, lady. God, no means no. Put it away.
If I may ask, Joe, you put that as a plural. Was there more than one female character?
I was speaking about like the medium as a whole during that time. But yes, singular, poorly written female characters definitely is a theme in anime from this era.
I was gonna say this has less female representation in it than the original Star Wars trilogy.
Ooh.
There they at least had a second woman.
So it sounds like we're about ready to get into this, and we'll of course save like final judgments for the end. I would just like to know ahead of time, does anybody feel they have to yell at me for showing them this show?
Yell? No. Final thought.
Okay, all right. Okay.
I'm saving that specific statement for final thoughts.
Okay. Then let's get into the meat of it. We started with OVA 1, MD Geist, the director's cut.
So fancy. So the movie opens up with, I think, everyone's favorite thing, reading.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it opens with the end of the Christian era.
Yes, we had to specify the end of the Christian era.
That's my favorite part.
Jesus has fallen. Long live Jesus. So we're flying through space and we're introduced to a Cocoa Puff that's called Jera, where the seeds of mankind have spread to. Why they put it that way, I don't know, but that's what happened.
They always put it that way.
Do they? That the seeds have spread?
That's like in a lot of sci-fi. That's always how it's worded with like humanity spreading out among the stars. It's always like their seeds spread across. It's like, oh, okay.
And like the people spread.
Can I also add in a little like outside context flavor? Possibly the worst word I could have chosen. I had also started watching a lot of just Dropout at that time, Dropout TV, and some of their funnier shows. And so when they said spread their seed, my mind immediately went absolutely, 13-year-old on this. And I feel so bad about it, but at the same time, it kind of is in line with the machismo of this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Agreed.
So I guess what I'm saying is I started laughing really hard when it got to that moment.
So we find ourselves at our main planet here, Jera. And Jera's a nice place, friendly, no wars at all, except for all the wars. There's just flying and death. we see someone shot and get torn apart. And oddly, I find this, compared to our past couple series, somehow feels more tame, because it's just like splat blood, not we have to see super gory details.
There's a lot of
Which is
people
what
who just get their face squoze in this show.
Yeah, I was typing this as I watched it, and watching it, or looking back at the whole now, there's definitely gorier spots, especially in OVA 2.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you want to know what this made me think of?
What?
The gore and the violence, at least in the first part.
Okay.
Nick, I need you to tell me which came first. This or Fist of the North Star?
Fist of the North Star by far.
Thought so. Okay, someone's really paying homage to that, because I'm not going to lie, that's exactly the vibes I got off of it.
Yeah, well, in the next scene we're about to get to, they definitely pay homage, in big quotes, to the post-apocalyptic vision from the Terminator films. But
you just mean fields?
The blue fields of human skulls, yeah, with treads going over them. But I do want to say, the other thing that this cold open really introduces to us is that this show loves mech designs. Because this is like, what, not even like a 3-minute cut, but there is maybe like 6 different mech designs we see blowing each other up and blowing people up and all of that. And that is a thing that we are going to see for the rest of the... If there is nothing else to enjoy in this show, it has a large quantity of mech design. If that's something you're into, that's something I'm into.
Unfortunately, all of the mechs are built out of aluminum foil and blow up very easily. So the aforementioned Field of Skulls is being flown over by some sort of weird helicarrier that has soldiers in what they refer to as coffins, which I think honestly are their mech suits, in the back. They're flying low, scanning for life, because they are, you know what, I will get this complaint out of the way now. I never know if we're watching the war people or the renegades who will be introduced to later.
That is exactly... Okay, so as soon as I finished this episode, I turned around to Nick and I was like, okay, I need you to explain to me who is who, because I have no idea who's on what side in any of this.
Nick, don't explain anything yet, because I need the audience to capture the experience with us on this, of not knowing who any of these proper nouns are.
Okay, that's so Joe now knows, because I gave her the like rules of thumbs for understanding who you're looking at, but I will keep my mouth shut until requested then.
All right. So nondescript soldiers flying over the field. They don't see any life, and that's because a very smart blonde guy is lying in the skulls. No, because they would be able to identify that with their lights. Is lying there with his harpoon gun to connect to the plane, swing around all cool style, get to the front of the plane, and shoot his big giant laser and shoots it down. All I can gather is literally everything is explosive. This is Rambo 2.0, where a bow and arrow can take down a plane.
It's the explosion age. Everything is made out of highly densified explosions, and as soon as you hit them with like a hammer or a spear or anything, the explosions are let out.
So the gentleman is flying off of the explosion he just created, and prior we had seen he looked like he got shot in the head. But he peels that sticker off and has a smirk. What purpose did that serve?
You never saw it coming.
It was a disguise.
Yeah,
who was that bloodshot man?
He pulled it off, and that's how he knew he had his game face on the whole time.
His incredible camouflage tactics of draw a dot on your head and then lay down in the open.
They weren't gonna stop. Anyway, so post this, guess what? Just to make everyone excited, more reading.
Mm-hmm.
We have to learn about what the MDs were. And in fact, we just stopped with MD Geist.
Bob, I want to compliment you ahead of time on your TV sins and movie sins, cinema sins, reading acknowledgement, just perfectly on point.
Thank you. Geist or MD Geist was the last of the MDs because his methods were too extreme. Apparently, that includes makeup design.
He's
Just way too far.
he's basically the same as House, MD, who is way out of his his right of way.
Also, I call
Because-
bull. There's no way if the army or military of any kind is putting together this super soldier program where this one's just the deadliest of them all, that they're just going to say, nah, we went too far. Let's stop.
No,
It's okay.
there's a piece in the backstory that kind of explains why they made that, but
we
also
don't
it
have
doesn't
the
make
backstory.
sense. when you learn later that they made the Death Force as well, it goes back to not making sense.
Oh, that much, honestly, I kind of figured out just because it's a trope. But it's like, this is kind of like what we talked about in certain things on other shows. It's like, but it's not part of what's here, so we can't judge it on that.
Absolutely. Like, that's the thing. Like, in a lot of shows, like, I know I'm also super big on having this complaint of just like, oh, they want us to like put this together, but we have to assume it because they never actually told it to us. There's a version of that always like bugs me because it's just like, oh, the plot is kind of contingent on this thing being true, even though they never actually give us the evidence of its truth. In this show, all of the stuff that like we would need to assume also doesn't really matter because nothing matters, because it's an OVA for just dumb stuff. It's an excuse to show explosions. So whenever that happens in this show, I'm just like, it's funny. It doesn't matter anyway. It just becomes a ridiculous thing to hear.
I really need to take that to heart because as I'm reading what I wrote, I have so many questions just now pop up in my head.
Mm-hmm.
So we find out that MD Geist is captured and put in a pretty much solitary confinement in a satellite in space.
They put him in space baby jail. Yeah.
So how did they capture him? The most dangerous soldier?
Yes.
How did they put him in space?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And we see that the satellite crashes to Earth. How did it fall out of the orbit?
Yes.
And after crashing, how did he survive?
Yes.
Well, no,
that part we do know.
It's because he's the most dangerous. Yeah, that part's self-evident. We hold that truth to be self-evident. I don't know about the rest of these.
But wouldn't he have been unconscious at that point? Or as it falls through orbit, he's like, oh, hey, I'm awake now.
I mean, I'm guessing his freezer body broke on impact, and that's what woke him up, and then he's like, I'm back.
You ever fart so hard it knocked you out of orbit?
But then is also, as soon as he lands, he picks up a watch, and it's just like, I hate
Crushes
time.
it.
Straight into dust.
Down with you. First thing he does it get closed because he's naked? No.
No.
He has to crush the poor defenseless watch.
Dicks out for MD Geist. Didn't expect to be saying that today, but here we are.
But the thing is, he's like a Ken doll, so don't get your hopes up if that's what you're watching.
He's definitely got the libido of one.
Are you kidding? Then it's a... Anyway, we'll move the scene on. We're going to the city. A suited up soldier, I'm assuming one of the soldiers for the planet of Jera, not one of the, since we already know the name now, Nexum soldiers. That's one of the Jera soldiers, not the Nexum soldiers, is wearing his souped up armor. And he gets attacked by the local evil gang. You can tell they're evil because they look like gangsters. They shoot a couple spikes into his arm because that's a normal thing to do and try to tear him apart. He's wearing his super armor and is able to scream and pull his arms out of the spikes, which just makes them shoot him with more spears.
It can't be that
Think
good
he
of an
would've learned.
armor if it can't stand up to crossbows. Like, what's going on here?
And he's really sad and upset. Well, don't worry, the main boss shows up and uses his super spear to stab him through the neck.
It's the Spear of Longinus.
Which once again shows how flimsy these armies are.
This scene
Like,
is
armor is just no.
This scene is absolutely just a scene ripped straight from Fist of the North Star, plus one suit of exosuit armor. It's kind of incredible that it is just that.
I mean, so here's my little headcanon because of the Fist of the North Star association my brain was making. Somewhere along the line in this world, Pat labor also occurred here. Don't worry about it, Bob. We'll get to it eventually. And they just took one of those suits that like somehow survived all of time.
Oh, okay, so this is just like in the Yakuza games where a bunch of the side story games happen while Kiryu is in jail, the entirety of Pat Labor and Fist of the North Star occurred while MD Geist was frozen in a satellite.
Something like that,
Okay,
yeah.
I like that
It's
headcanon.
Fist of the Pat labor.
Oh, giant robot fist. Okay.
So our previously naked guy shows up, got dressed. Are we going to ask about the clothes? No. Good. He walks up and wants to go through the soldier's armor. And the gang's like, hey, what you doing? Our boss just killed this guy. And the boss even gets upset and declares a fight. And unfortunately for him, our blonde friend here, who we learn later is a Geist, he just slices off his arms.
That boss did not
Then
realize
stabs him in the head.
the general dangerous rating of the Geist before him. It turns out it was most.
After Big Boss dies, we meet the singular female character who is scantily dressed. She looks kind of like she used to be a superhero with this fancy crown she has on her head.
Honestly, she's dressed more than most other, like the Face of the North Star women and stuff. Like,
So you're
she's
telling
got
me this,
a jacket and everything.
you're telling me
That
this
is-
is
that is true.
progressive?
She doesn't stay that way, but
Yeah, she tries really hard not to stay that way.
Yeah. She is dressed as though Jubilee from the X-Men were the head villainess in a Sega Saturn RPG. That is what I will say. I don't know who that reference lands for, but they are giggling right now.
And we get it. Honestly, I was gonna say like I kind of got more like 80s era, like early Psylocke vibes. Bob, stop me if you think.
I was honestly getting a
Or Polaris.
Not Polaris. Honestly, I was thinking, what's the name of the Japanese cartoon females? Sailor Moon.
Sailor Moon. Okay.
Like,
Okay, yeah, okay.
and this is going to sound mean, so bear with me. Trailer
Also,
trash
Bob,
Sailor
that's
Moon.
anime.
Trailer trash Sailor Moon. Ooh, okay. I have an
Ooh, yeah.
AU headcanon to draw later now. Okay, all right.
I dare you to make that comic.
So she shows up and lets Geist know that she can, or that he can stay with them. He really just wants information, especially about the Nextrum army. She concedes, and even the group of gangsters seem confused as to why she'd keep Geist around. But they don't complain too much. The gangsters I love, we really never learn all but one of, or we don't learn any names, maybe one.
I don't think we learned any names.
Yeah, I'm pretty
And-
sure these are
and-
the name.
That's important because, don't get attached.
Well, listen. Queen Biker Gang here wants to really jumpstart the gene pool here, and none of them are cutting it. They don't get to have names.
I mean, listen, the most important one, who I put down in my notes as Lieutenant Twink, because I think that's a fair description.
Hey, he is one of my favorites. That is an outfit that any queen can pull off.
So Bob
that's
is
what I'm
now
saying.
telling you in a roundabout way you are right in your description.
Okay, good. Well, we later will learn that he does make it out of this story well, so that's something to be celebrated.
Leather Daddy pulls through.
Put that on a shirt.
This is the scene we've kind of been alluding to. The girl's name, I think, is Maya?
Vaya with a V.
With a V?
Yes.
Oh, I'm going to have to correct myself, everything I read. Vaya does her best to seduce Geist, because as apparently the only female who survives anything, she wants to get down. But he's not into that. He just wants the information. That's all he is here for. And I'll give the show credit for that. He is a army person. He is a tool meant to kill. He could care less about having a libido.
He's absolutely a tool.
See, so this is where, only half jokingly, this is where I say MD Geist is actually some of the best asexual representation in anime. He no hungry for girl. Like, this is, and I wrote down this. This show is 14 minutes and 41 seconds until tits, and like she just climbs on top of him and starts to moan while he's stock still, and then he just throws her off and just be like, not interested. And you know what? You don't see any asexuals. It's
Is he asexual if he had it programmed out of him?
yes,
Okay.
because like by overall standards, he is still a human, and understanding humans to be sexual by default is the default.
I'm going to contest that. After watching this, I'm not actually convinced he's human.
I mean,
I am. There's a reason for the season 2 thing.
Oh, I'm not saying it's lost on me. I'm just saying I'm still not convinced. Also,
there's a lot of things you could say about Geist.
Yeah, yes, there is. Also, I kind of need this whole scene dubbed over with like poorly played Kenny G through a kazoo. Because that's essentially the mood that happens there.
She gets the gold star that says you tried.
Yeah, this is got the participation trophy of you showed up.
See, and here's the thing. I couldn't confidently say that this show had no rape in it, because technically she's attempting here. She's trying to put on him something that he doesn't want of a sexual nature, and so I mean, at least it's is it a sign of equality that is the lady doing it this time?
I mean, there is a whole Law and Order episode that says that is a thing.
So that's just your little taste of it in here. That's why it ranks lower on the rapiness scale.
And I will say in my notes, no means no.
Mm-hmm.
Well, suffice to say, the only thing he wants to put his pull in is his enemies.
Mm-hmm. Oh, loves it.
Wait, hold on. He's shitty 80s anime Batman. No time for anything, just fight.
Yeah.
Essentially.
He is horny for violence.
He's Goku.
He's kind of a No, Goku has 2 kids?
Yeah, but Goku's fight sexual.
Goku's fight sexual. He's very much a Goku. Remember when Goku gave a Senzu bean to, was it Frieza?
Cell.
To Cell? Yeah. So
he gave his energy to Frieza.
MD Geist is kind of a Goku. Or Goku. No, order of operations. Goku is kind of an MD Geist.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not a highfalutin city lawyer, but I think I just made my case.
Anyway, we move on to the next day, and Geist is out looking for this information for the next army. Him and the gang go and find a tank that is being chased by other motorcycles. What I have listed is that the tank belongs to the Nextrum army, and that the motorcycles and mechs all around them belong to the Jera army.
Okay.
I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I'm saying right now.
I recognize that is what you have written.
Thank you. The tank honestly looks real beat up. But the commander is trying his best to make sure everything's okay. The gunners are all dead, and the commander even takes over one of the guns to try and fight off some of these mechs that are attacking them. Fortunately, they're all made out of aluminum, so I don't know why he's concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Geist and, well, pretty much just Geist, comes in and takes out a few of the mechs himself. the
Well,
gangsters come in.
the-
Go ahead.
There's the little scene where back up on the plateau, Geist and Vaya's like, "Oh, Geist, you can't go in there and fight them because we gotta." And then Geist just starts revving his engine. It's just like, vroom, "What? I can't hear you, Vaya. Vroom, did you say I have to? Vroom, go kill him? Okay, bye."
And he does. He just goes in there and lays waste. The gangsters, I think, we see them take a combined one mech, have him get ran over.
Yeah.
So I have a scoreboard here, or a
Yes.
hierarchy system here. It goes tank greater than mech, and then spoiler, knife greater than tank.
Worst rock, paper, scissors ever.
Yes.
And
Okay.
if we could just pour one out to the gangster who is wearing Bebop's glasses.
Uh-huh.
I was hoping he'd make it to the end.
The one who said, "I'm not dying for that crazy jerk," and then immediately dies for that crazy jerk.
By his head exploding, as the heads do apparently in just blood.
Hey Chuck, on your power rankings of the Geistiverse, where does the knife with a live grenade hanging off of it land?
That is above knife on its own.
Okay, all right, okay.
Because it has more explosive potential than just knife.
See, but like he stabs that dude in the face through the cockpit, so it's not like the grenade actually killed anybody. That dude was already wrapped up.
But if anything, this show, program, movie, thing, choose your word.
Piece of media.
This piece of media. There we go. I'm trying to find the appropriate word for it. This piece of media has demonstrated that explosions.
Yeah, that's
so
fair.
therefore knife grenade greater than knife.
Okay, good. Yeah. Good.
Through the power of the Colonel, who gets a name and Lord knows, I don't even remember. Vaya and Geist all meet up because all of the mechs are destroyed, and Maya just comes walking up. So how much you gonna pay for them? And the Colonel's like, what are you talking about?
And then I said, I've never paid for it in my life.
The Colonel wisely says, I didn't ask for your help. You just showed up and helped. Vaya and Geist walk off because Vaya explains, Geist, we should be getting paid, and Geist already knows he can go wherever and get in a fight.
Okay, so there is something we've passed over a little bit, which I will contest is present in the show. During the fight earlier, when Geist is driving past the gunner seat
the
on
Colonel
the tank,
eyes him up.
Yeah, they catch each other's eyes. And it is one in this shot. It is where
Over the gentle 80s saxophone music.
yeah, where
Cue Kenny G.
Geist has never looked more like Quattro Bagina than in this shot. Don't worry about it, Bob. I'm just imagining the letter that says, "Do not trust MD Geist. He is a char."
Spoiler.
But like what that is suggesting or trying to suggest is that they actually recognize each other, and because they have a secret hidden past that we don't know about yet. And part of he kind of suggests at it, but Colonel Kurt, from Heart of Darkness fame, he also kind of suggests like, nope, that I know that guy is too dangerous because of reasons. He's the most dangerous, and we cannot trust him to work with us.
It occurs to me at this point in my notes, I had never bothered to call Geist by his name. I just have it written down as Ivan Drago.
I mean, that's not wrong.
Yeah.
As Colonel Kurt was explaining all this to his soldiers, we get a cutscene of Geist at his best Rambo. Just blowing stuff up with a knife. Does magic. And the problem is the Colonel's first in command at this time, because they're pretty replaceable. It's like, hey, all the soldiers love Geist because he's giving them motivation. So, unfortunately for the commander, he has to bring Geist in. Which he does. And him and Vaya get to hear about Probably one of the silliest named things. The Death Force.
Ah, yes, the Death Force. Death Force 1. That's the plane that the Death flies on.
And where is the Death Force Central Command located?
It's all around us, kind of like the actual Force.
No, it's got a proper
It's
name.
just in the desert. Is it? I just know that it's in the desert. I don't remember the name of it.
No, it has a name.
What is it?
I think we broke Nick.
Nick's laughing too hard to say it, so I'll say it. They need to infiltrate Brain Palace to deactivate the Death Force.
Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, that is the sound of our editor, Nick, losing his shit. I didn't realize this was the bad Sherlock.
I don't blame you for not remembering it. They say it like twice, and it's too silly.
They talk about the death. Okay, as far as the Death Force being one of those serious phrases. Beware the Death Force.
Oh my god!
So what the Death Force is explained as is just robots taking over everything.
Yeah.
And killing everyone.
Yeah, apparently their plan for if they lose is to release robots to kill everyone on the planet.
We saw Terminator and thought it was a good idea.
Yeah.
I have it written here that this was the Nextrum's plan. I seem to recall what activated it was the president dying. So is this Jera's plan and the commander's part of waiting for the end?
Mr. President did not get down fast enough.
Waiting for the end. Okay. So the Colonel, Geist, and 4 other people are suiting up in these mech suits, of which somehow Geist gets the super special one with the spinny blades on the side that would totally cut him, but we're going to overlook that.
Well, that's the one that he stole from that dead body after the Raiders killed him.
And I see why he died. He had spinny things on his arm.
Uh-huh.
And don't worry, if you're feeling down, we got some cool music going on when they put on their mech suits.
Your use of adjectives concerns me.
The use of what?
Adjective.
Okay, as opposed to what? They have their spiky suits and their awesome 80s music.
I mean, you're still using adjectives. I don't know if I described to this. I'm just saying.
It's fun. I will give the music to this as so relevant to when this movie came out.
The
soundtrack is incredible.
It is absolutely a perfect encapsulation of the time. But as I've stated before, publicly, there's a lot of the 80s I do not like and think should never be dealt with again.
Prior to this scene, we see all the remaining gangsters, all 3 of them, leaving Vias, being like, hey, we're done dying. We're leaving now. And I really don't think she cares too much. Because she's got Geist.
Except Geist completely ignores her because he's just so psyched that he's working on his fight tech armor. He's customizing it, he's tuning it up for the big fight coming up.
And it's at this point in my note, I literally wrote, at this point, I genuinely forget who they are fighting. Is this the regular army, and are they the renegades, or is it the other way around? Because at this point, I don't know. There's just a fight.
It's the Reds versus the Blues, Bobs.
And one of the very few named, not main characters, Sakamoto dies. Not Sakamoto.
Uh-huh.
Well, okay, so...
Damn straight tragedy.
I need...
You know Sakamoto?
I know Sakamoto. So... Okay, okay, hang on. Oh, boy, I don't...
Hold on, are we getting into extended lore?
Not... we're getting into the IMDb trivia, the DITW trivia page.
Is it in the film?
Yes. So,
okay.
I want to talk about the moment that you were talking about where MD Geist, like, the door opens and reveals him in his Cletus the football robot looking ass power armor for the first time in full. And the thing to know is that back in the 90s, this media was published in America by Central Park Media, and at the time, their logo was a rough 3D rendering of MD Geist in his armor. So when you see this, the thing that was said at the time is people became used to this image of this power armor as the company spokesmecha for Central Park Media. So there were quite a number of other shows that when you would start them, you would see MD Geist in his armor just like this at the front of the show. And
I have a confession then.
I just had to find this excuse to say company spokesmecha because that is part of the MD Geist Heritage Foundation.
Grand sponsor. No, seriously, I knew all that. I just didn't remember it was MD Geist because at the time I heard that factoid, A, it was about a different series altogether, and B, I had never watched MD Geist, so the name just probably went one ear and out the other.
Mm-hmm.
Holy crap! I was like, something about this feels familiar. I was like, I'm getting like knockoff Shredder, but that's not it. And like now I know. Oh my god, you've helped me connect dots that have been kind of subtly bothering me the last couple of days.
There you go. I'm happy to help.
So, moving on, they are getting ready to enter into their fight. Sakamoto dies. In fact, everyone but the Colonel and Geist die because I guess their mechs have a little bit better protection than aluminum.
There
Go ahead.
is some mentioning that Kurtz is like from the original army and everybody else is much newer recruits. So there is an element that Geist and Kurtz are the most veteran and experienced, and that likely has something to do with why they survived. Oh, and also again, a pin in something for later. The line that Kurt says after Sakamoto dies is, "They're all dead again."
Again.
Uh-huh.
Yep, I have that noted.
Yeah.
Good. This is due to information from outside the show, so just pin in that for later.
All right.
Otherwise, it is just a hilarious thing to hear him say out of context.
A gigantic robot appears, and the Colonel's like, this is how I'm going to get rid of Geist. He uses his laser ring to turn the robot on, and runs off so the robot and Geist can fight. Which they do. The robot shoots a spear, hits Geist. Is it a spear or a bullet or a laser? Who knows?
There's
It
sort
does
of
hit Geist.
his main weapon is like a halberd with a spike on the end, so...
He hits Geist in his leaky red spot, and he leaks like a hose. But Geist, using his most dangerous ways, causes the bot to lose and melt and go to his second form. And the second form has weird breathing because his body kind of separates.
It like poofs and it dissolves into his second horizontally breathing form.
And that bot is faster and gets the upper hand for the most part, but with the help of motivational music, Geist prevails.
Mm-hmm. Because
during
it's the final boss fight, and you can tell because the vocal version of the theme song starts playing over the fight as he turns into his third form and then finally gets his butt kicked.
Real Frieza level stuff here.
Yeah.
The Colonel does get to the control panel and is able to turn Death Force off. But Geist makes it to the control panel room himself and just splats the Colonel. Like, hope you weren't connected to him because done. And Vaya runs in because reasons.
She was safe because she hid, she screams as though to answer questions before they're asked.
Does that make any sense as to why she would leave hid in place? No. But sure, she just runs in. And she's like, hey, I'm here to watch Geist turn the Death Force back on. He tells her that he turned it back on because this is just a game to him.
Mm-hmm. The game.
Yeah, I love video game.
All he knows is fighting, and this is the ultimate fight.
What's that?
Death Force
fight sexual?
Oh, that's horrible. The last scene, I think, is Geist smiling.
It's Geist
And-
smiling while he stands on a plateau, looking at all of the giant centaur robots that he just unleashed onto the planet Jera Seinfeld.
Oh my god, everything's horrible. Wait, no. I can fix it. I can make it worse.
That's the end of the first OVA.
That's the end of the first OVA. Hey, let's talk about this first OVA, because like there is an argument to sort of take these as separate, because for the most part this was made as a standalone before the director's cut linked it with the sequel. And also any of the outside context stuff that's really I have to share probably only refers to this first one. So what do we want to does anybody want to debrief on just the first episode first? Would you yet like to know who the sides of the conflict were?
No,
Yes,
because
I
we're
would
not
like
done
to-
yet.
Oh,
Okay, all right, yeah, let's
The fog of war and confusion must continue, as was intended.
yeah, no, you know what? Fair. We're going into a whole different fog, but yeah, it's all fog. It's fog all the way down. That means that it's time for us to head right into OVA 2, MD Geist, Death Force.
of all the forces, this is the deathiest.
I'm sad they
I've
won't
seen
say.
Death here.
I'm just sad they won't say Brain Palace anymore after this.
I'm so sorry for you. This one opens with a robot scanning for survivors. Because we watched the first OVA, we know that these are the robots from the Death Force. And they have just been sent out to exterminate, which is what they do with their Megabots. And that's the best way I can describe them. That's just what they are to me, and that's what I'll refer to them as. They did find some survivors, and they chew them up, and then they see this poor guy who's just sitting here, who's screaming. And don't worry, Geist is helping this guy. Because Geist has him sitting in front of the vehicle.
He has tied him to the hood.
Geist has continued his ability to destroy any type of robot as though it was made out of air. And it's able to take down everything with his guns.
And
He thinks this... Oh, go ahead.
he hits so many robots with his car with the guy on the hood on his way to fight the biggest one of the robots.
That's okay, the survivor lives.
He
He
has
ends
to
up
live.
upset that he lived.
Yeah, he has to live so that way he can scream out a whole bunch of exposition about what happened between the first OVA and this one.
Yep. In fact, that's what we got to. More reading.
Mm-hmm.
Finding out that the leader of the planet's now the Supreme Death Force Robot Intelligence. Or the Third.
Okay.
After reading this, we find out that Vaya is still alive and, in fact, decided to wear more clothes. And she's hanging out with other survivors.
Yeah, she seems to really calm down.
She's got like a PTSD amnesia, so she has forgotten how to wear little clothing.
Mm-hmm.
What I find interesting is this encampment of survivors is very obvious as to where they are, but the robots can't find them. So, okay. What I find interesting is it's an unnamed character, but I'm pretty sure it's just Joey Wheeler. He's still chilling with them. How on the planet Jera, you have a Jersey accent. Don't know, but it is there.
Mm-hmm.
For them, Geist is just an urban legend. Just there's someone out there fighting all the robots.
Well, so spoilers, but they're not talking about Geist at this point.
Yeah.
They're talking about the yet hitherto unseen Krause.
Speaking of which, the survivors do finally get attacked by the maggot robots, but a fighter comes in his own personal mech armor outfit, which is white.
With wings.
I wonder what it's. I wonder what it's supposed to be counter-referencing.
Uh-huh.
The survivors are rescued, and they're taken back to yet another base. That should be clearly obvious that it's a base for humans, but we won't talk about that.
Well, so
The base is.
Okay. Oh, sorry. You go first.
No, you go first. You have talk less.
well, I was just gonna say, at this point, well, through the whole thing, really, I have no sense of how much time had passed. So I assumed that the kid with Vaya was Geist's son somehow, but that's never brought up.
It's the immaculate post-apocalyptic conception.
But like, I think it's only supposed to be like a year later or something, so it definitely couldn't be unless he's a super soldier child who grows fast.
Oh.
Anyway, it's irrelevant, but this thought was present in my head the whole movie.
Well, they had
that's
to do something in the Brain Palace while the Death Force was leaking out.
I
was
mean,
just saying, Joe, that's totally unrealistic in this totally grounded series.
you got to think about it. In a lot of ways, MD Geist is a lot like Liquid Snake, and I bet that includes having the rapid aging serum built into him. So maybe his kid would too. Never know.
But he's not
That's
liquid.
supposed
He's
to be his
solid.
kid. Like they never declared that. Great. No, that's just.
I don't
messing with
think
my
it
head.
is. I don't think it is, but it's another small blonde hair, blue eyed boy.
Yeah.
Man, there's a lot of blonde-haired, blue-eyed going on in this.
Mm-hmm. No, they are they are making something. There's also not. Man, imagine if Krauser was blue hair, blonde eyes instead of blue skinned.
I would accept this. Also, I'm not going to lie, my notes refer to him as Sour Krauser.
That's fair. He is,
this is-
pretty grumpy.
This is where we meet Krauser. I initially thought he was just a priest, but no, he is the grand deity of the survivor encampment. As Vaya meets him, she notes that he has an MD tag as well, and she freaks out because she knows that MDs are just trying to kill everyone. Her reaction startles me in comparison to how she treated Geist originally.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of confusing messages here.
I have it on authority that PTSD will do that to you.
Yeah, this is the most correct use of triggered that we have seen. She doesn't even remember why she's scared of it, but she just knows that those dog tags mean trauma.
Our scene shifts to Krauser meeting with a doctor. I think, are they the ones who talk about the ESI?
There's a mission briefing in between. Yes, that's where
Okay.
that's where we learn.
The mission in between, they have ESI that camouflages them so they can't be found by robots.
So they do explain
They
it.
only have so many.
They have enough for like their 6 fight tech armors and one big one for the moving city that they're on. They also do a little bit of math talking about the Death Force, about how there's currently like of the big Centaur like command units, there's 900 of them, but they can self-replicate and they can there can be a max of 9,999 of them because
Who programs that? They just specifically that number, not even the self-replication, but like no, they have a max limit.
They ran out of room for that extra digit, kind of like Y2K all over again.
Yeah, it was going to be a bit
plan on
overflow.
it.
This is that Futurama, the kill bots. I threw soldiers at them until I reached their kill limit.
Okay, so I have a tiny bit of conjecture because I care way too much about this show than it deserves.
Go on.
Earlier when the scavengers get attacked by the maggot bots, somebody in the crowd screams, "Oh, it's eating him and using him for power." So I think part of why the robots eat people is because they're powered by eating them. So I almost wonder if that theoretical upper limit is actually caused by just like how many humans there are to sustain what size of population if they're eating them.
But that wouldn't work because the more they eat, the less people there are, so the less robots they'd be able to maintain.
That's
unless they go full cannibal.
Soylent Green
Also
is
depends on
people.
like what they're getting out of it, and also if that's their only source of power, then like, well, the design of these robots in the first place is ridiculous.
This is the straw that broke the back of this narrative.
Like they were designed specifically to kill everything.
And by eating them, they do that.
Yeah.
Well, okay. just so we are all clear on Operation Death Force. The incumbent the incumbent military of the planet said, if we lose the war / our president gets killed, that will trigger a dead man switch to release an army of robots that will kill everyone by shooting giant flesh-eating robot bugs at those people out of cannons on bigger centaur robots.
What could possibly go wrong?
I mean,
Possibly go wrong.
it's the most elegant solution I've ever heard of.
We have vastly different definitions of the word elegant.
Oh, you're right. Sorry, I was thinking of contrived, not elegant.
There we go.
Okay.
So we move on to Krauser meeting up with the doctor, who I believe was the one who created the MDs, or it's just suggested. And we find out that
yes, he is. He was on the project, the MDS project, back when that was still extant.
And Krauser, of course, is the only sane MD because Geist went crazy. Krauser is not sane.
Krauser's
God
not
complex. Okay. God complexes are completely normal. Won't cite current events.
Won't cite maybe some people on this call. Listen. We all have our foibles. It's fine. I'm not gonna hold this against Krauser.
Listen, I feed the dog. I am God to the dog.
So Krauser gets frustrated with the doctor because, he's still alive. Geist is still alive. Krauser goes off and meets up with Vaya because he thought that Geist was still in orbit, but Vaya must have met him, and he gets that out of her. We change scene yet again to see a cyborg. I think he's with the original Doctor.
He's a guy that sounds like Shredder from the Ninja Turtles 2 in the 90s.
And the cyborg apparently is a servant. Now, they refer to him as a cyborg, which means he should and does have free will. Boy, does he seem like a robot.
So
he's friends with the robots because reasons.
Well,
I guess they meet up for poker night on Thursday or something.
Actually, I wonder if that's suggesting that his cybernetic modifications are so intense that the robots don't actually recognize him as a human to exterminate anymore. But also they were saying, like, not only is he a cyborg, but they basically keep him around as a guinea pig for other experiments that the doc wants to do.
I thought they mentioned specifically that he was also the experiment for the first SEI device or whatever.
That might also be why he's not
picked up by the robots.
Yeah. Okay. And also his name is Eagle. Can we just make sure that gets said? For some reason his name is Eagle.
And he's in a desert.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
So Eagle goes out because he's been directed to find Geist and bring him back.
Cut to
which point?
Cut to scene. Sorry, go on.
I didn't think he was directed to kill him, just to capture him and bring him back.
Mm-hmm.
Eagle does find Geist, and a fight ensues, including a robot. Even though Eagle loses his legs, he is actually able to take Geist down. I suppose at this point we could argue this is how Geist got caught forever ago. But when they're on the plane flying back, Geist actually wasn't captured or asleep because he protects the plane that's flying him back.
Well, he kills the rogue Death Force robot that snuck onto the plane. I don't think he would say he was protecting anything. The opportunity to kill was so immediate that it woke him up so that he could take it.
Fight?
So they get back to the base, and Geist puts him in a cheap knockoff of the Wolverine outfit when he's floating in a tank. And the doctor finds out that Geist's body just continues to evolve and gets stronger the more he fights.
He also...
While we were joking about the Goku comparison, it's almost quite literal at this point.
Well, with him in that tank, he is Cell now.
Mm-hmm. But the doc also like tries to do a brain dive into Geist's subconscious, and I'm just like, Doc, don't do that. It's bad in there.
That's like 1 layer deep. That's all it is. It's a 1 layer surface level brain.
Uh-huh.
What's in there? Kill. Anything else?
Nope.
Fight.
I like Eagle's lines at this point because he does sound very much like Eeyore with, I've got a bad feeling about this.
Han Solo?
We have a short meeting between Vaya and Krauser. Then Geist wakes up, throws the doctor across the room, and just starts eating people.
He just gets bitey. The PA says
Because-
an accident has occurred in the lab, and it's just like, way to underplay it. Geist is loose. He's wearing that visor that the guy from Phoenix Wright has, and also he's biting everyone.
Geist and Krauser finally get into a fight, and Krauser really does have the upper hand. He's able to get some good strikes in, and then along comes Vaya just to distract Krauser so Krauser can get bit.
It breaks the window with the
yeah,
chair.
no, it's so funny too because like he's winning, he's already doing the thing, and she like stops the fight so she can say, "Hey, kill Geist," and I want him to be like, "Yeah, that's what I'm fucking doing."
Nom 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 nom.
And Krauser shoves Geist through the floor to fall down and declares himself the winner. And we know that there's time left in this movie, so we know that's not the case.
Yeah, bro, that is not going to kill Geist. Everyone here knows that's not going to kill Geist. What are you doing?
But we just move on with the story like that didn't happen. That, of course, there's a positive. Geist is dead. And we even have a plan to take out the Death Force. Of course. How are they going to do that? They're making a fake city. A fake city filled with fake life.
Uh-huh. They had
And bring everyone there and blow it up.
And what is the name of the bomb? The not atomic weapon?
Oh my goodness, what is
Blah,
it? I didn't write it down either.
blah, atom bomb, blah.
I'm sorry, it's a Jignix bomb, which I'm not sure I'm
Can't
allowed
say
to
that.
say.
I don't
So-
think you can say that. I think you have to censor this episode.
Uh-huh.
So this particular bomb can only be assembled on site because reasons.
Well,
You can't
All of these electronics, they can't just fly it in.
I think the doctor was also lying. The different doctor now was lying about that because we're going to find out that he's actually sort of hoping to set the bomb off early to catch Krauser in the blast to get rid of Krauser because, I don't know.
We find out Eagle is secretly helping Geist because he hates being their servant. And I think he just wants to see Krauser get his in the end as well.
Okay, this is the moment where Eagle says, I brought you all the fire sticks. And his name is Eagle, and he called them fire sticks. And I hate to think what they're trying to signpost about the background of this character. I'm really not happy about it.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
Me either.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as they said that, I'm like, you sons of bitches.
Mm-hmm. But to be fair, I believe he is going to survive this encounter, so he's got that going for him.
Geist ends up going to the city as Krauser and his, I think, 5 other fighters are there to put the bomb together because it's 6 pieces. Who knows? Even though it's surrounded by robots.
Well, it attracted the robots, don't you know?
Yes. Geist is attacking Krauser and all of his men, starts beating up Krauser, and their fight's kind of cool just because of the compliments of the mechs, black and the white in the fight there. Geist takes Krauser's ESI, and now all the robots can see him.
So I think what that is, I think that is the device that was creating the like illusory city full of people, which means now the robots aren't going to be interested in being here. And the closest, it's either that or it is the one that was hiding the like Bastion ship. And so now the Death Force is going to be able to see that ship and go after it. It's not clear.
Bugs want food.
Bugs want foods. Who among us?
So, due to that, Krauser has his men in the giant flying ship that's parked outside come flying in to come save him. They get taken out. And as they crash, the person holding the button to the bomb presses it.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Okay.
Go on.
Dies holding it. And as his hand falls, it's face down and it lands on the debris in such a way that it pushes all 3 buttons,
You know.
setting it off anyway.
As the does.
And big bomb go boom. Everything gets taken out in the vicinity except for the main characters, which really just proves what point did that serve.
Uh-huh. I mean,
Uh,
so arguably it took out, like, maybe, like, 90% of the death force, except for the ones that Geist saved by leading them away, I guess.
Which,
Sure.
maybe. Krauser flies back to the castle and sees that Geist has brought robots to it.
In the middle of this fight, it just caught my ear, but they absolutely just used the Star Wars blaster sounds for some of the gunfire during the segment.
Yeah, I noticed that. I'm glad it wasn't just me.
I mean, earlier, when Krauser was in the lab with the doc was like loading a vial into a syringe, but when he did, it made like the M1 Garand like closing the breech noise.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, that's a very intense noise to use for that action.
So Krauser and Geist get ready to do their fight. The people see Krauser and start surrounding him because he's their savior. He needs to save them. And Geist is now attacking. And Krauser does what he can. He grabs a pole, blocks with it, and stabs both Geist and a little boy that Geist had, I think, through them.
So that's
Sometimes you just gotta kill a bitch.
it's the little boy who was not Geist's kid who survived with Via
at the
from
beginning.
and we've been seeing him all
This-
along being like, yeah, go Krauser, I'm the most innocent in this movie. And then
His scream is so stupid.
Yeah.
no, such good bad screams in this show. When Eagle got his leg blown off, he just goes, "Oh, my leg."
God damn it, this dub.
It's so good. It's so bad. It's so good.
So because Krauser killed a little kid, may we not look at all the other deaths in this movie?
Mm-hmm.
He is now not the leader. Krauser is dead. The end.
Okay. Okay.
That's it. No, that's how it ends.
Yeah, no,
Guys.
it ends. There's some scenes in the credits, because I guess
Oh
we
my
beat
God.
Marvel to the punch here. But yeah. And by scenes, I mean stills.
Just whoops. We have to end the movie now.
Boy, I'm glad all questions were made, not answered.
Oh, it's so good though. It's so bad. It's so good. Oh my God.
I will say, this part 2, I pulled less from than part 1. Maybe because it was just a little more straightforward-ish.
It was like it's fairly straightforward, but it.
No, there's still a million questions, but
Oh sure.
more straightforward.
But it's also like this one really fast forwards time in a lot of places. Like there's a part where what they do is like they have a montage of Krauser asking Via questions in the bedroom, while also like showing stills, and like we're hearing Krauser interrogating the doctor about Geist, and so it's like these things did not happen at the same time. We don't know how far apart they happened. They just love to skip ahead in this movie. And then yes, not
Yeah, you got to
everyone.
get to the explosions.
You got to get to the part where the two most dangerous soldiers are in oppositely colored fight tech armor, fist fighting on top of a city that is exploding underneath them. And you know what? They're right. They did need to get to that.
I'm afraid if I look up whoever created this, like the concept of this,
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna find the name is just one word, and it's gonna be frickin' Bane.
It's Koichi Ohata. It's getting Ohata in here. That's the mnemonic to remember who made Empty Geist.
Nope, Bane.
Okay. All right, so shall we just get into our final thoughts? There's a lot of I'm sensing a lot of questions amongst those of us gathered here today.
Actually, before we do final thoughts, we should have the backstory that we never actually got in media.
Is there anything that you would consider relevant to these movies that would help us out?
Yes. Okay.
Explain yourself.
All right. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of understanding via my repeated viewing experiences with this and also with my prequel manga having read background. Okay, so first of all, the when they say the regular army, that is the Jera army. Anybody you see wearing like that green military uniform, including Geist, that is the regular army. That is the Jera army.
The Jera regulars, okay.
Yes. The Nextrum army, the new types of guys that have been invented out here on Jera.
Wait, is that what they were supposed to be this whole time?
They're like technological new types. So pretty much all of the combatants in mech suits, and when you cut in to see their faces, they have like diodes and stuff on their faces. Those are the Nextrum. So like in the very opening scene, the guys in the flying coffin, that's a Nextrum army patrol that Geist, as part of the regular army, takes out. When we get the big tank scene, Colonel Kurtz, he is the regular army, and like Geist is joining up with him essentially because was his original allegiance anyway. Although at that point they don't call themselves a regular army, because while Geist was frozen on the satellite, the regular army was essentially defeated, and the remnants have stayed together but now call themselves the Noah Guard. So you will hear them talk about the Noah Guard. That is the remnants of the regular army, which are the sort of incumbent military force on Jera, which itself is an Earth colony. Okay? This doesn't help anything. Here's the thing: none of this matters.
Yeah, I'm kind of sitting here. It's like, okay, this is like when Beej reads a thing and it says, "Nope, too many proper nouns," and I'm like, yeah. There's too many proper nouns and they don't mean a thing.
Yeah, no, this doesn't really change the experience of watching MD Geist. Eagle is still going to say, "Oh, my leg. Sakamoto is dead. They're all dead again." So okay, so here's the biggest here are like the three questions that get answered by the prequel. One, yes, there were only ever two MDSs created, Krauser and Geist. The final mission where they determined that the MDSs were too dangerous to continue the project of was a mission where Geist was serving under Colonel Kurtz, and basically Kurt and Geist were the only ones to survive and make it back, and Kurt basically blamed Geist for not being a team player, and that's why everybody died, because he was so good at killing enemies, but that's all he did. And also, like, there was a thing where it was like it was an experimental project that the military never liked anyway, so they were looking for an excuse to cancel the project, and so the rest of Geist Squad getting killed by circumstances on a mission was the excuse that they were looking for. They did not capture Geist. Geist willingly came back. He was basically served a dishonorable discharge and then sent up to satellite jail. So like he basically went along with that. Okay, so there's a thing that okay, there's a weird thing here. Something that doesn't really get addressed in the show is that part of the biological modifications done to the MDS is, or at least on Geist, is they are essentially brainwashed to always follow orders. And so in like a sort of not ironic twist, Kurtz at one point, was it Kurtz, or it might have been a different officer above Geist, who basically gives him the order, just focus on killing everything. Don't worry about anything else. So technically, part of Geist's complete like disregard for the wellness of others is because he is following the order he was given before that guy was killed, and then everybody was just like, oh, Geist is violent, and nobody ever thought to rescind the order. So in a weird way, he like his willingness to follow orders is what made him so overly violent that they decided that they needed to stop it. And he never talked about it, even when they court-martialed him. That's why he went peacefully onto the satellite. Couldn't tell you why the satellite fell out of the sky. Maybe he did, in fact, fart so hard that it brought down a satellite. And then he looked at that clock and said, fuck time.
So, question.
Yeah.
How long between go into space, fart, fall from space?
Great question. Next question.
That's what I was afraid of.
Yeah. Long enough. Well, no,
enough time for the world to become Fist of the North Star instead of Terminator.
Yeah, long enough for both Pat Labor and Fist of the North Star to occur.
So, like 5 years.
Yeah, 5 or 10. But yes, because Kurtz was on that mission with Geist, that is why he says they're all dead again, because everyone but Kurtz and Geist dying on the squadron is what happened in the one where they decided the MDs were too violent. I do want to put in just adding on to when the doc is looking into his brain and saying only the willingness there to fight and his body regenerates and whatever. The prequel also suggests that part of how they made him so good at combat and part of like the mental conditioning is he is only interested in finding and killing bigger and bigger things and like always challenging himself. So yes, he is very much a Goku. But so that would kind of explain why he actually, goes and activates the Death Force, because what he is doing is he is creating an even bigger enemy for himself to satisfy that bloodlust. It had nothing to do with wanting to kill everybody. He just knows Death Force is something bigger that he will be able to kill. Yeah, that's pretty much all you miss in the prequel. No other questions are answered. The end.
Question.
Uh-huh.
The prequel. You may have stated this earlier, and my brain may have just fuzzed out and did not record the information properly. Is this a prequel in the sense of this was totally written, but we never actually managed to, for whatever reason, include this in either OVA, or is this one of those, no, we really just want to kind of milk this for a little more money prequels?
I'm not totally sure. Joe, you might have picked up on some of that information when you were doing your research?
I got the sense that it was there just to sort of like retell the original OVA with some of the details filled in.
Okay.
Yeah, like the fact that this is a director's cut, and the element of that is the difference of the director's cut being they put in hooks for the sequel OVA. I'm thinking sort of like they made the original and then the sequel and the prequel were probably written around the same time, and so the first OVA was altered some amount to hook into both of them. So like maybe the original OVA was written standalone, but then it was altered for the director's cut to be we understand all of this story now, so we're going to make it blend a bit better.
God.
Any other questions?
Not questions, more statements.
Great.
You go.
Yeah, let's get into them. Proper final thoughts. State it up.
Proper final thoughts. The fact that you need to read to understand is not a positive thing for a movie. My biggest concern is, why did they not quote all of these mechs in the skin of Vaya? Because she can survive anything. And these mechs blow up when things get spit on.
Because she's not hot for mech.
That being said, the music is great. The action for being 80s is not bad. This is definitely a movie I would say you should watch, or OVA, I guess. These series is you should watch once and be done with it.
Yeah, this is, like I said, this is a very nostalgic. This was very foundational for my understanding of what anime is, but at the same time, it's just like it kind of like that's part of why it's in the same category with Wicked City, because it's very much just like it is so what the hell in its contextlessness that it is something more that like you watch for so bad it's good fun like once, and then the only other time you watch it is when you're inflicting it on friends. Good and bad news. I consider you all my friends.
Hooray!
Exactly.
Overall, this is, for the movies in this category so far, this is probably the tamest. Not the best, not the greatest, but the tamest. It's not crazy with its style. It just is what it is. It's,
More tame than Lane?
in my personal opinion, yes.
Okay. Huh. All right.
Because with Lane, you got your information. Yes, there's no blood and guts and nudity, but my head did not hurt at the end of this one, outside of the 100 million questions that I had.
I'm going to piggyback on Bob's there was saying. Lane tried harder than this.
Okay, yeah. Lane was definitely like a show that set out with a message to send. MD Geist is here to dick waggle about look at how many mech designs we have, and also look at how these dudes explode. Did you notice that in OVA 2 there were no repeating mech designs from OVA 1 except for the ones that were like footage from the previous anime flashbacks? It was literally everything was new. Even the design of the Death Force robots was completely different.
That yes, I caught that, and I will say honestly, even my notes like, where the hell did these come from?
I attribute that to a 10-year gap.
Okay.
Not researching this at all, not knowing about the 10-year gap, didn't make sense. Now it does, but again.
See, I would chalk it up to the like Gundam Wing Endless Waltz issue where sometimes the designer will just decide, actually, these mechs always looked this way, as in way more fancy and intricate, the way that we're showing them in the movies. It's just, simply you must accept that that's how they always were. Both of these are canon. They are the same. Don't worry about it.
Wing Zero literally had angel wings. That's why it has the zero.
Oh, man, did we put Outlaw? Nope. Outlaw Wing? Wing Zero?
Gundam Wing?
Gundam Wing.
I intentionally left that up.
Oh, all right. Well,
I'm waiting for the right time.
okay, well, too late. I'm going to write Gundam Wing ? On our list for season 2 possibilities. Okay.
Writing down Gundam Wing.
Uh-huh.
I already know you know something.
Doodle-doo. Season 2. Pop-up-a-loo. But that's my thoughts. My final thoughts are, this is a cotton candy movies.
Mm-hmm.
What's your opinion, Chuck?
Okay, let me start. Hold on, let me just reopen my phone that closed on us real quickly. 1 second. I would like to start with possibly the only note in my whole list that I feel still is relevant after everything we've heard, and I want to make sure I get it right. So bear with me here. Boy, I wish I knew who anybody was in this show and their motivations and what they are, why they have them. What the hell is going on?
Don't worry, all of that becomes clear on second and third watches.
That will never happen. For me, anyway. That being said, I'm gonna do. I've liked to use the analogy of the compliment sandwich before. We're gonna do the open face compliment sandwich because I really don't have two bad ends to throw at this. I've just got one, and then I've got the stuff on top.
Mm-hmm.
here we go. We're going to start with the base. Man, this thing is absolutely 80s era, as kind of like something I said previously about previous show.
Wicked
previous
City?
show that my yes, Wicked City. It is absolutely 80s action schlock. It is literally devoid of a plot other than bang bang boom boom.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a part of the reason I hate a lot of, and when I say the 80s, I should be genuinely more specific, because I don't hate all the 80s. I think the Blues Brothers is great. I think some of the Star Trek movies from that era were great. But then I look at things like Rambo or Terminator, I'm 50-50 on. I like the idea, but, but any of the action schlock, Lethal Weapon, I can't stand that. Because it is just an excuse to have explosions and shootout and violence. I in general, I can't stand it, regardless of the era. There's just a lot of it then, and the 80s seems to write on it. The lack of plot, the character who I will never give her a name, I just referred to as hot and spicy the whole time, and her depiction in so many ways, all just grate on me. It's I hate every bit of it. I'll give her points for, definitely, I guess, being the power figure in part one. Cool. But yeah, like, just, meh. So it is definitely wasted on me in that regards. However, here's where the compliments come in. It is nowhere near as offensive to me as Wicked City was. If gun to my head, I had to watch one of these again, I would absolutely watch this again. If only for the fact it is a lot easier for me to kind of just say, okay, to a lot of what's going on.
The thing that brings us above Wicked City is that you feel you can turn your brain off to this one.
Mm-hmm.
But that implies that there was something about Wicked City, for as much as it was sort of, not a lot to dig into in it, there was something about it that didn't let you turn your brain off, and I'm wondering what that was.
It was so offensive, I could not just let my brain shut off.
Well,
because I could see, because in Wicked City, I could see it was trying to be something, and as the record shows, I don't feel it did that well. And that bothers me. Whereas if something is just being itself, I can turn my brain off in the sense of I don't feel the need, or I don't feel any kind of compulsion to look for something more. I can accept it on its terms.
Okay, so it almost wasn't even, it wasn't just that it was offering you something that was not to your taste, but the fact that it was doing it poorly was so...
Yes.
Okay.
It was causing a headache, and when I'm in pain, I cannot turn my brain off.
Okay, that is really interesting, but I also completely understand that. Okay, all right, that I actually understand the issue with Wicked City way more now. All right, good.
Yeah.
I liked this show for all of the reasons that Chuck did not.
Ooh.
I love just 80s action schlock.
And I'm glad someone does. I always feel like I sound disingenuous when I say that, but I really am, because people should have something they enjoy. Not everyone has to enjoy the same thing. And it shouldn't be, because otherwise, boy, would the world be boring.
Yeah, sometimes you just want something to give your eyeballs a fun time without having to think too hard.
And that's why I say I would probably want to watch this over Wicked City, because I can definitely just turn my brain off. We are running on autopilot. But, like I said, in true 80s fashion, this has no plot whatsoever. And this, like I said, doesn't just hold it and embrace it. It jumps off the airplane without a parachute, going with a rocket pack instead, charging to the earth at 100 miles an hour, screaming the whole way, shooting at arguably nothing and everything around it. And I gotta give it credit for that. If you're not going to really have a lot of a plot, in fact, to the point of, in my notes I put down and just said, I'm pretty sure the writers of this are less interested in this than I am. Which really made me think, like, okay, they wanted to make a thing for, let's be honest, reason, make money. And they didn't really shy away from that. So as otherwise, I would normally say, oh, that's just pitiful, a waste of time and effort. Again, it was the 80s. There is nothing more 80s than that.
Yeah.
And I gotta give them credit at least for leaning into it. It's not they weren't trying to be high art. They weren't trying to pass themselves off as a movie with a message. You cannot convince me that there's a message in this.
There's not even a sense of like edginess to this. Like that's something that Wicked City had. Wicked City was like trying to be like on the one hand, like, oh, are we trying to homage noir, or are we just trying to be, edgelord shock value? This one has a lot of the gore, but it is definitely, overall in tone, very much just like, yeah, we're just like a head empty action movie.
Yeah, it knew what it wanted to be, and it was it, and it owned it. And regardless of how that makes me feel about the finished product, I have to give it 100% props for that, because so many things try to be pieces of media, try to be something they're not, and yet they fail at being either what it is or what it wants to be, typically both at the same time. So I got to give this a lot of props to that. And even for the gore, I will say this: it didn't feel gratuitous in the sense of it wasn't just gore happening everywhere. This is absolute 80s schlock action movie gore. Still gratuitous, but it fit for the theme. It fit for what it was. So I can't fault it for that. This is what I think Rambo really in its heart wanted to be. I think in any other 80s action movie, like, this is it. This is like quintessential 80s action energy, which arguably in and of itself makes it perfect for that. And so that's my compliment, because it did it well in that regard, in that context. Do I want to watch this again? No. No, in fact, since you mentioned the Gundam Wing in the room, I was going to save that. But the reason I asked about the prequel is Gundam Wing arguably had prequels, but its final 3-episode compilation or OVA, depending on how you watch it, also had a prequel. And to your point, Nick, I know you say you like it, and I know that feeling because when I found that prequel manga, I ate it up. But I will also say, whereas here, again, everything is okay, sure, because it's not trying to be overly intricate. Gundam Wing Endless Waltz's prequel fell apart on multiple rereadings. So going back, reading a second, third, fourth time, it became more and more apparent, like, there's no way this fits in with the continuity that they're trying to set up. And they're not trying to say, oh no, it's a different continuity. They're saying this happened essentially 2 months after the end of the show, or however long it was after the show, and leading into the events of the following year. And it just didn't fit. So and the reason I asked that also is at least your prequel here, fit in with at least some of the dialogue presented.
Yeah, the thing that I'll definitely say about this one is, like, is it necessary? Absolutely not. Like, because there is not much of a message that MD Geist is trying to get across other than explosions, fighting, look at how crazy this guy is. You can fully understand what MD Geist is, quote unquote, about without reading any supplemental material. But as far as like an unnecessary prequel goes, if you are the nerds like me, and I'm assuming us, that are kind of like, hey, why did he say again? What did he mean by that? And you just like would like some answers to some lingering questions. It does a fine job of just getting in there and answering those questions and making you go, oh, I feel like I understand this. It does it in the sense of like, world building, you know? It's just like, oh, that thing that seemed weird, this is a very reasonable, fitting bit of world building to explain that. Is it necessary? Absolutely not. Is it functional for doing something unnecessary? I think it does a great job of it. For something that scratches, gives me a way to expand on how to experience this thing that I have a huge nostalgia itch for. It's great. That's the part where it sings, is that it's just like, oh, that thing you like, here's more. If you like it simply because you like it and not because of anything it necessarily does, it's absolutely in that range. But like, yeah, it is not, there is nothing offensive about its existence or execution.
And I guess that's what I'm trying to get to, is what I'm hearing, and what I'm just based on what I'm hearing alone from this prequel for MD Geist. It did what a much more heavily funded established franchise project could do. And it made a prequel that wasn't just more, but actually made it make sense. The Gundam Wing one was nonsensical, and it was bad. And that's why I had to ask, like, what was the feel of it? Because when you mentioned the prequel, I'm thinking, was that for Endless Waltz? And that was really just a terrible cash grab.
It's interesting because the way that they did it is that it's like, it's not even necessarily like written in the way that where you can feel that like, oh, this is explaining this exists, this is built upon hooks into the main thing. Like if you came across that prequel manga and read it on its own, it does very much just feel like this is an early story of the MD Geist. Like in a way it fits on its own.
It's a story in the universe that is part of MD Geist.
Yes, it is. Yeah. It is telling the story on its own, which is then later called back to by the OVA. But like it is a story on its own, and that's a good way to approach these things.
And everything you described there is what the other prequel failed to do, and to me, that's amazing and astonishing, but also a credit to the material as a whole.
Okay, so that sounds like how we feel about MD Geist. Weirdly positive. Done with it, but positive. But now we need to put a metric of how we feel about it, and we do that by placing it on our rankings lists.
Well, this is a hard one because that opening I did not care for. Oh, I see that we've put in the whole soundtrack.
Yes, I have posted links to the opening and closing themes for both first and second OVAs. One of them is a link to the full.
Well, I was gonna say, if you were to ask me what is like the sort of mascot track for this show, it would be the Violence of the Flame, because that is the one that played during the boss fight in episode 1, where they actually say dangerous, most dangerous.
I can agree with that.
I thought that's what I heard as well.
That's because that's what they said.
So if we go based on that as the main theme for our shows, I would probably put it at 10th.
Okay, pushing Spy Family down.
Yes.
Wow, that is very high.
However, caveat, if we were allowed to include that banging saxophone music throughout the entire series, that would be at number 4.
Number 4, yeah, right after Cowboy Bebop's tank, yeah.
It was beyond amazing.
It's like I don't know you anymore.
What can I say? It was 80s in all the right ways.
I'm just giving you a hard time, buddy. I mean, it's your list, man.
All right, I have put both of those on here. Both Violence of the Flame by Hironobu Kageyama. We know that name from somewhere.
Hold on. Back up a second.
Do
any of our other shows get multiple entries?
Yeah.
Okay. Never mind.
Hang on. This is important. Oh.
Best works include Chala Head Chala for Dragon Ball Z.
Uh-huh.
No, I mean like on the songs ranking list.
Oh yeah, no. I'm. You said the name sounded familiar, so I was looking up.
Oh, sorry.
And yes, we have had doubles. I think there's 2 doubles on there.
Yeah.
Oh,
One is a double, and the other is the show within the show.
okay. I will stand down.
But yes, this song is by Hironobu Kageyama, who did Shala Head Shala, which was the original Japanese theme for Dragon Ball Z. And also, he was part of the Supergroup Jam project, which did a lot of title themes for other mecha anime, possibly ones that we've already touched.
Okay, this gets 1 extra point in its favor only because, not because the guy did Chala Head Chala, but because at certain points during this, my brain was just like, can I put this to that theme? Specifically, that theme. And it worked.
Yes, he also did Heat, which I believe was the theme song from Mazinger Z, which is one of my favorite songs in terms of mecha
Oh, that
music.
song's so good.
Uh-huh. Yeah, uh-huh. Okay, he also did St. Elmo's Fire. Well, I'm going to have to look into the truth of that. Oh boy, yeah. Okay, so yeah, Hironobu Kageyama. For having Hironobu Kageyama on your soundtrack, you get extra points. That's just simply how it be. Good. So next, we are looking at.
I think the next thing, there's no android waifus.
Are you
No,
sure?
Eagle does not count as an android waifu.
I was
No
not.
Android.
I mean, well, okay, so. Clearly, Eagle does not count for this list because Eagle is a cyborg, not an android. Yes, thank you. We're all on the same page here. What about that little guy, the pure robot, but vaguely humanoid? So I think that could count as android. The Death Force, and I'm going to say android now to make my case. The Death Force guy from the beginning of the second episode who was doing the scanning, who looked like a tiny black and red Phase 1 cell.
I feel like an android should have some kind of self-autonomy, and I don't believe that it had autonomy. It just had basic programming.
I also don't think it reaches the qualification as waifu.
Or sentient.
Well, listen, waifu is really a matter of taste. So, no one can truly say what does or doesn't reach waifu levels.
Nick, are you saying you want your waifus not to have the ability to consent?
No, I'm agreeing on that. I think a level of sentience is a very good point. But listen, Cell was sentient and basically the same shape, so Cell could be somebody's waifu. That's all. You can get Cell on a Dakimura. I absolutely guarantee it.
I'd rather not.
To be waifu material.
You know what? Nope. But no, I don't. I am going to state we did not see an android waifu.
Okay.
However, I do believe there could be a case for horse runner-up.
Okay. Is it the Death Force Centaurs?
Motorcycle.
In his
But the Death Force
motorcycle.
Centaurs, I didn't even think about.
Yeah.
Oh, that's something he could. No one rode the Centaurs, but he rode that motorcycle to death.
He did ride that motorcycle. The one with the giant cannon on the front when he was rescuing the Capital tank. Okay.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
And the runner-ups aren't listed. It's just something that's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, like honorable mention.
Honorable mentions. Honorable horse mentions.
We did not come across any pretty horsies. Or any horsies at all.
Well, okay. Just
We did?
quick, low-stakes argument.
Are we going back to the Centaur?
No. Okay, the version of the Death Force Centaurs at the end of OVA 1, they were very majestic. Like, they had some, like Greek designs going on. I actually think those were quite pretty. I'm sad that was not the design they used in OVA 2. But that's actually not what I was thinking of. I was just thinking, because this show is so mechanical design heavy, we did see a number of different motorcycle designs. And were there any motorcycle designs that anybody was particularly smitten with?
None that stand out to me.
Okay.
I barely honestly remember the one with the cannon.
Motorcycle.
A cannon motorcycle. I mean, that motorcycle was well endowed, but I don't know if that counts.
And everything's made out of paper mache and dynamite.
True.
Mm.
How about, was anything in here most flying pussyfoot?
Oh, that tank was most flying pussyfoot.
The
Yeah.
capital tank? Yeah.
It's the only thing, and I'm going to put it at 3.
Okay, so it's
Sure,
below
okay.
Ryder's chariot and pushes down the Count of Monte Cristo's badass metal carriage.
Because that is the only thing that didn't explode. Like, it took a lot of damage, but it made it to the end of where it was going.
You know, seems fine. I have no pun intended, no horse in this race.
There were no horses.
There was the cannon horse.
Oh, well, it was a runner-up. Sometimes some things become a runner-up because they are not technically horses, and that's the only reason why.
Had horsepower.
And I will posit you made, and Chuck, you're allowed to step in if you disagree. I think you made a fine point to argue Geist's asexuality.
I don't disagree. I was just genuinely curious if it qualified if someone was, conditioned by the military to have any sexuality drummed out of them, if that qualified as asexual or not.
I don't think it matters how you got the way you are.
Okay.
It describes how you are. Like, the word is just a description for how you are, so.
Yeah,
and I would... Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think there's actually a stronger case could be made that Geist is beyond human as such. The concept of like human default sexualities no longer applies. But if we are considering him as a modified human and he is still human, then he can have sort of queer sexualities.
And that's fine. Like I said, I didn't know if there was a line to be drawn in that regards, and that's literally why I was asking.
No, it's a good question. It's a good question.
It is. So I would put him in fine. He is okay.
We're stretching the definition of fine here because I feel like the guy's problematic.
I mean, so
he is absolutely problematic, but if we're looking at based on the point of
in terms
of representation itself.
Yeah,
he never took advantage of anyone.
No, I agree.
Better than a lot of things that we've seen.
His asexuality was never represented as one of his problematic traits.
Correct. Yes. No. I just the idea of calling
the bad guy fine,
a cold-blooded killer fine.
He no hungry for girl. He hungry for hot violence.
There's a reason he's not hell yeah.
Yeah. No. Well,
I can't say hell yeah to a murderer.
In my heart of hearts, it is the overall just batshit brain dead, so bad it's good nature and tone of MD Geist, the show, that would make me go hell yeah when MD Geist is on screen. But again, in terms of his form of representation, and when you look at more things, and I know that is a very personal state for me and not like me objectively ranking, because that's what exactly what we are so scientific here at the end of our episodes. Yeah, fine.
Everything.
Oh, it's important to have. I have iPro.
I mean, same.
In case this anime boils over the side of the beaker and we have to run to the... We do need an anime eyewash station with the big handle. It's just like, oh no, I saw Wicked City again, and then you just point your face up under the shower head.
Do not stare directly into the anime.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely not. You gotta watch it on your phone while you have something else going on. Yes. Okay, all right. I believe that's it for our listings. So the only thing left to do...
The only question is, what are we going to watch next week?
Could be anything, even a boat.
And I have
options.
I have 3 options for you.
Oh, good. That's an odd increase over the 2 from last week.
So I have How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Philosophical Existentialism. I have People Are Like Hedgehogs, They Have Issues. And I have Giant Meat Robots, Shouldn't Be an Issue, right?
I'm going to go with how I learned to not worry.
Good choice, good choice. That means next week we will be watching the last show on our list, and that would be Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Hey, Bob. It is
We did
time.
this to you.
Oh,
It is time to start worrying about it.
I am already because I've heard Chuck talk about it.
Yes, you have. Bob, we did this to you. To be fair, I'm going to spoil this, Bob. I intentionally did not put this on the list because I assumed someone else would, and I did not want to be the one to do this to you.
Oh, that's what I think it is that you talked about. Oh,
If there's one tradition about getting your friends into anime, is at some point you force them to watch this show.
And for what it's worth, Bob, this is part of the intro to anime, like late 90s, early aughts starter pack.
And
This
we
was
are
one
not
of-
going to tell you anything going in.
Yeah,
So
unless
you
you
get-
remember any of my rants from way
Yeah.
back. But
okay,
So-
I will be straight up and tell you exactly what I know about it.
Okay.
That
Go on.
or that I think, and please correct me if I am wrong.
Oh,
Mhm.
absolutely
There
not. We're saying
there
nothing.
are mechs. There are mechs in this show.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there are mechs that are powered through intercourse.
Okay.
No, that's a different show that was trying to be this, but go on.
Chuck, stop answering the questions.
I just know which one he's referring to.
No, I'm just we're
I feel like this is going to be a very adult show.
okay.
And
so-
we'll see how it goes. Very adult.
Yeah,
Next
this
show.
is the final show in our existential crisis tier. And we look forward to the discussion next time.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting time, and we hope you join us all then. And until then, you can watch some anime.
As a treat.
Not before bed.
So.
Deep in the Weebs is a show by Chuck, Nick, Joe, and Bob. Our theme music is Kawaii Friends by C. 3. You can find our show on YouTube, or subscribe to the audio-only version on iTunes or wherever podcasts are served.
Before we part ways, I would like to read a couple of the other entries that Koichi Ohara has worked on. And if anybody recognizes these, please just make the noise of your emotional reaction to it. He did a design cooperation for Mobile Suit Gundam Char's Counterattack. Oh. He did the robot design for Gunbuster. Oh.
I actually watched that recently.
He did mechanical design for Super Dimensional Fortress Macross 2, Lovers Again. He was the director and scriptwriter for Genocyber. He was the director for Burst Angel. He was
I
the
feel like I've heard of that.
he was the director for Iki Tosen, Dragon Destiny.
Oh, you need to send me that link. That sounds exciting.
And he did storyboard work for Detective Conan, Dimensional Sniper.
No, it's Detective Colon now.
Detective Conan, Dimensional Sniper. So I'm just going to add most of the ones I just said to our season 2 options. And if we have to push them to season 3, then I will dig my toes in then.